Hi, friends. So I said the other day that I would do a video talking about my personal treat policy, and I call it treats. I don't call, well, the first rule is that we call them treats, not cheats. So when you're eating healthier, you can still allow yourself to have things that you love. I think that's the biggest misconception that people have when it comes to dieting. That's why I hate the term dieting, is that it's all about restriction and telling yourself that you can't have sugar and you can't have this and you can't have that. You can't have alcohol, you can't have chocolate, you can't have that favorite coffee drink. No, you can. You can choose to have those in your life, but you adjust the way that you eat in order to allow those into your life. So for me, I have five rules for a treat meal. And then I'll talk about kind of how I break it down into my week and calculate it. So the 5 rules, let me go through them really quick. Number 1, no guilt. If you allow yourself to feel guilty, you're missing the point. You have to allow yourself, when you're eating healthier and you're looking to create a sustainable, healthy life, it has to include treat meals. And it can't, when you have a treat meal, you cannot feel guilty about it. This is your freedom to go have that piece of chocolate cake or to have that brownie or whatever it is for you that you want to have as your treat. But you have to eat it without any guilt. And that's probably a hard one for a lot of people. Number 2 is you have to plan them. You have to plan your treat meals. They shouldn't be a spur of the moment decision. I'll talk more about that in a second. Number 3, don't forget everything you know about portion control. A treat meal shouldn't be a license to binge. And I always say that you can indulge, but you don't need to overindulge. There is a line where it goes from being enjoyable to being like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna be sick. You can, and I always talk about I have to remind myself of this too, the law of, I forget what it's called, law of diminishing something. It's an actual thing where the amount, I should have looked it up before I started this, but the amount of, let's say, for example, you buy a large Blizzard, and honestly, and I'm sure most people can find the enjoyment in about half of that large Blizzard, if not 1/4 of it. The same amount of enjoyment comes from that amount as the same amount of enjoyment that you will get from a treat meal. It only goes up to a certain amount. Only goes up to a certain level. So the amount of, let's say you want to eat half a pan of brownies, what is the point where it goes from your enjoyment level stops? So I can have usually 1 brownie and be totally satisfied, or I can have 1 coffee drink and be satisfied. So don't forget everything you know about portion control. Number 4, use the calculations in this post to figure out how many meals you get to plan out for the week. So I'll talk about that in a second. And then number 5, move on. Do not allow that one treat meal to trigger more bad eating. Because so often it can become this spiral where you feel that you eat something that you feel is bad, that you shouldn't have done, and so you feel shame and you feel guilt, and then you basically just say, screw it, I'm gonna just eat everything and start again another day or another week or next month, or I'll maybe just give up altogether about trying to be healthy because it's just not worth it, because I don't want to feel that shame and that guilt and those icky feelings. And that's not what we want. We want you to realize that tomorrow is a new day, draw a line in the sand, have that treat, and then realize that tomorrow you can, or the next meal even, you can get back on track with your normal eating, your healthy eating. Okay, so in my challenge group, I'm basically reading this from a challenge group that I have going right now. But basically, I tell people to take a picture of those rules. So write those down if that's helpful for you. But basically, I like to calculate out how many treat meals you should have every week. Think about whether you want to eat, what percentage do you want to indulge in? So do you want to eat 80% healthy and 20% treats? Or some people like the 90-10 rule. I prefer like 85 and 15. So for example, if you go, let's use the 80-20 rule. So let's say 80% of the time you eat clean and you allow yourself treats the rest of the time, the 20%. So if I'm eating 5 times a day, let's say you have like 3 meals and 2 snacks, and if that's different for you, whatever, just calculate that in. 5 times a day, 7 days a week, that's 35 meals that you're going to be having throughout the entire week. So if you take 80% of 35, that's 28 meals. So 28 of your meals are healthy, and 7 of those meals are treats. So, or if you're doing the 90-10 rule, 32 of your meals are clean and healthy, and 3 of them are treats, if that makes sense. So I'm like somewhere in between there. And that depends on your goals and what you want to accomplish with your body and your health, and you have to assess like what makes sense for you, and you can change that however you want. But you have to plan that out. So a lot of people, when I share this in my challenge groups, are like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like I get it now. I don't have to just like indulge in like all of the treats that show up at my doorstep, or show up in the break room, or show up like every time I go out to eat. I don't have to get the burger and french fries, because I know when you plan out those treats and you know how many that you should, that goal is for the week, when you know that, you can stick within those parameters, and it creates freedom in your life, even though it doesn't seem like it, but it really does, because it gives you the freedom to pick and choose and decide what's worth it and what's not. And that's why I always like tell myself, okay, I would give up the Blizzard because I don't really like Dairy Queen ice cream. I would give up and for not have a Blizzard unless it was like chock full of Reese's peanut butter cups. But I would give that up, and instead I would choose, if I had to pick one or the other, I would choose the brownie, the homemade brownie, warm, fresh out of the oven. So make sure that you are planning your weeks out and looking at your week as a whole and figuring out, okay, so on Tuesday, I know I'm going out to eat with some friends and I'm going to have 2 glasses of wine. So I would consider that a treat. 1 glass of wine, no. I mean, especially if it's red, because it's really good for you. But you be your own judge. I do not treat wine or one alcoholic drink as one of my treats, but that's just me. Someone else might. So you be the judge of your own life. But now I lost my train of thought. But think about, so like Tuesday night, you're going to go out to eat with some friends, and you want to have maybe 2 glasses of wine, or maybe you want to have the warm molten chocolate cake for dessert. That can be one of your treats. But then you think about the rest of your week and you're like, okay, so I have like 4 more treats left to indulge in this week. Oh my gosh, that's so many. And then you can look at the rest of your week and plan those out. And if you decide not to have them, great. Who cares? Just continue eating healthy the rest of the time. So the rest, what is the 35, or what is the 28 clean meals or healthy meals look like then? They look like veggies. You're like overloading. So I shouldn't even go down this route because I could talk forever about it, and I wanted to keep this short. But basically every meal should have a veggie, even breakfast. Yes, you've seen my breakfast. I share them all the time. Have vegetables with your breakfast. It will change your life. I promise. And it's a great way to get an extra serving of vegetables in where you you wouldn't. So every meal should have a veggie, a protein, and some sort of like starch or carb, or so like your plate should be like half veggies. And then the other 1/4 and 1/4 should be the protein and the starch. Whereas a lot of times I see people skipping the vegetables altogether for like all of their meals. Maybe they'll throw in like some carrots or cucumbers or something as a snack, but their meals don't have any veggies in them. Or it's like basically all carbohydrates, so many carbs. So just pay attention to your plate and how you are creating it. I think there's good guides everywhere about like how much of each you should have each day. Protein, I've heard from Dan, my husband, who is a great nutrition expert. He says for women, it's like 1 palm size. So every meal should have 1 palm size of protein. Veggies, I think is like 2, I don't know. And then a starch is another palm size, or like a cup or something. I don't know. Go look on Pinterest. I'm sure there's some guides on there. But pay attention to that, and also pay attention to how the foods you're eating make you feel. Because if you have, let's say you have 2 donuts for breakfast, and then you're starving, and you have to grab like snacks all throughout the morning because you're so hungry until you get to lunch. And then lunch you have, let's say, a cheeseburger and french fries, and that digestion is like super uncomfortable, and you need like some Pepto-Bismol or whatever, or you need to go lay down. And so pay attention to how those things are making you feel. And a lot of times, like we tell people to start their day with protein and veggies and a starch, because that will help you be more satisfied, and you won't crave the donut in the break room. And I always tell people, like, cut the donut in half and enjoy, that law that I was just trying to explain that I probably butchered and you probably didn't understand. But basically, like, in my head, like a half a donut, you can get as much enjoyment out of half a donut as you could from a full donut, in my opinion. But and it satisfies that little sugary craving that you have, and you didn't deny yourself it. So that, like, every time we tell ourselves we can't have something, what does it do? It makes us want to eat it more, right? So I love these rules, and I live by them, and I preach them to other people, and I love how it helps us just be mindful about what we're putting into our bodies and what we're eating and what we're allowing into our lives. So plan them out, and realize that living a healthy life does not mean that you have to cut out everything that you love. If this is helpful, let me know. Leave me a comment, share it with a friend, whatever you want to do. Okay, bye.